Hello everyone, it's Mary. Welcome back to the channel. Well, I'm starting off this video with some pretty exciting news. If you've been hanging out with me, you know that I've been hoping for some sponsorships that align with what I'm doing. So I have a great one. So before I get into this really super fun card that we are going to make together, and I'm going to show you my process from start to finish, let me tell you a little bit about the really fun sponsor that we have for today. So let's talk about CARDSTOCK and why I chose to accept this sponsorship and feel that it's in alignment. I'm a huge advocate for people following in their dreams and sharing their gifts and talents with other people. So anything online course related, I'm a huge fan of. But CARDSTOCK is really cool because you have access to a bunch of different classes. It's an online community and resource where you can find tons of different classes to advance your skills in different genres. So some of the topics that they include are knitting, crocheting, quilting, sewing, painting, drawing, cooking, even yoga. There's fitness, there's woodworking, jewelry making, so many different kinds of things. In fact, this summer I wanted to offer my son an online course for his drawing. You can look up certain types of drawing that my son wants to dive into a little bit. So lots of different options that you have here. Okay, so for me personally, I'm going to be checking out the cooking classes. Although I can spend hours in my craft room, I don't really find inspiration to cook, so I'm really excited to dive into this a little bit. Oh, look at this one, an air fryer collection. Anyone else have an air fryer that they're obsessed with? What is something that you're interested in learning? So put it in the comment section. I'm super interested. The first 1,000 of you to click the link in the video description will get a full year of the premium membership to CARDSTOCK for only $1.49. If you'd like to join CARDSTOCK, click the links below. And thank you again to CARDSTOCK for sponsoring this video. All right, let's get into why we're here. So I wanted to record my card making process from start to finish and talk about it with you because I think sometimes when we have all these supplies, we don't really know where to begin. At least that's a problem that I have. So I went in my stash. I said I wanted to make a fall card. That was the very first, what do I want to even do? That was the first, I want to make a fall card. That's all I knew. And so I went to my stash and I pulled out some of the stamp sets that are in that theme, but also some that I could make fit the fall theme. So yes, there's a Halloween stamp. I'm going to show you right here this reminder that if you want to hinge on your stamp set, just put a piece of masking tape on there and then cut it off. Now you have a hinge. But I have a Halloween stamp, a Christmas or a winter set, a pumpkin set, sort of very fall, and then a gratitude set, which isn't fall necessarily. It's just like a thank you kind of set. And I'm pulling all those 4 pieces together to make one card. I'm not suggesting that you buy separate stamp sets. What I'm suggesting is that you have the reminder that you can use stamp sets in other themes. Like they don't have to stick with one, which means you're going to get a lot more out of your stuff. So I'm showing you my little chamois here. This is actually a big piece. It came in like a 2-pack or 4-pack, and I cut them down into 4s. So I basically have chamois forever. All right, so I'm going to stamp out my sentiments here on Accent Opaque cardstock, which I use for alcohol marker coloring using Memento Tuxedo Black ink, because that's an alcohol marker friendly ink. I'm ready to color with my alcohol markers. This is something I want to remind you that you can get for free. I spent hours upon hours creating all these combinations. I have them in both the brush tip of the 320 set from Ohuhu and the fine tip from Ohuhu in the 320 set. And you can have both those charts for free. I came up with almost 200 different combinations between the marker sets. So please feel free to grab that. You'll see a link in the description and in the comments to get that. So let's begin. Now, my first thing when I'm sitting down to make a card, I knew I wanted to color and I knew I wanted a fall card. I didn't really know much beyond that. And that's okay. Just start the process. Once you get into the groove of things, you're going to start coming up with different ideas. Right here, I thought I would stamp a background with some watercolor stamping, but the stamp of the leaf was too small and it was just going to be jumbled mess. So I decided to nix that idea. And then I decided to take out some watercolor cardstock and do a little bit of ink smushing. Now you can see I'm not smushing and blending. I'm more just going for like a spattered look. So that's going to be the background for this card. Now I'm going to take out my little leaf stamp and I'm going to mix the colors. I start with the lightest color just to not cross-contaminate too much. And I'm just going to get a little bit of these 3 fall colors on this leaf. Now here's out of the box. I have this sweater, which is technically from a winter set, but I'm going to make it a fall sweater just by putting a big old leaf on it. Think about that. Think about what images do you have that you can actually add different smaller stamps to it. And that's going to expand your usage of your supplies as well. Now let's get into the coloring. I do, of course, speed this up quite a bit. But when you get the Ohuhu marker chart, or you can just go to my website if you want to access the replay of the alcohol marker coloring class, by all means, you can do that. You can buy it for as low as $1. So you basically pick your own price, but I'll also send that to you if you want the chart. You'll get all of that information in one email. So I'm going to color up my pumpkins here. The importance of, and just a plug for swatching out your colors when you're doing this, is I'm not wasting ink anymore by swatching off to the side before I decide to use them. I have my chart. I know what works, and I'm just going right to it. And so that's really my huge plug for you if you have any brand of alcohol markers, to find out, take the time, because otherwise you're not going to use them and they're going to dry up. So take a little bit of time to swatch them out and see what blends well together. Now I'm using fall colors, as you can see. I looked at my chart and decided, now if you look at the caps on the left hand side, you might not think these are the results you would get. That's why the Ohuhu markers are amazing in actually how they work, but not so great in the labeling of them. So I colored up those. I'm going to add some fun accents to the edges of the sweaters. So I'm going to make one of the sweaters with the same kind of burgundy color I used on the coffee cup. And then I'm going to use for the other sweater the orange that I used for the pumpkins. So really quick coloring, really fun. I had a good time with it. I did make one of the sweaters more gray. Now, I recommend if you're going to color the image under the stamp, do the coloring first and then stamp on top with your oxide inks, because I had to be very careful not to run my marker through the oxide ink because they wouldn't work very well together. And so, so just finishing up the coloring on here. Again, sped up, but I do have a class if you're just getting started with alcohol. I keep it really simple. It's a very beginner class. All right, so I get those all colored up. I'm really happy with the results. And now I'm going to fussy cut them out. Funny enough, as I was on my last fussy cut situation here, I realized I had coordinating dies for pretty much all these images. Story of my life. So it's okay. I actually am one of those people that don't mind fussy cutting. Now here's a pro tip. This is how I bundle my markers together. I no longer keep them separate. I keep them in their blends so I can find one color only, and they're all together. So that's changed my coloring life as well. So again, I'm just going to fussy cut all those out. Now here is one of the things I highly recommend you do. I use a 𝗦𝗘𝗧𝗨𝗣 black ink marker, and I go around and I edge out all of my cuts if I cut up to the black line. If I used my die cuts or my dies for these, I wouldn't do this, obviously, because you would leave a little bit of that white border around it. But I actually like the look of going right up against the black line a little bit better than the white. It depends on the image, I suppose. Next part of my card making process is I knew I wanted to use all of these images. I just didn't know where. So I'm kind of looking and getting placement. I sort of like it. I'm loving the background, except I want to add a little bit more splatter with some dark brown ink, because I feel like, again, I'm lending to this fall theme, and that's really fun. It just makes me think of fall when you add lots and lots of splatters, lots of different color variations. And so I am adding those splatters. Now, here's something I kept in the video, but I didn't like. I was going to do like an ink flicking on the edges of my cardstock to add a little bit more of that brown, and I decided it was taking away from the ink smushing on the panel. So I didn't like it. That's why I start off with my panels in the A2 size, and then I just cut them down if I need to, which in this case, I feel like I needed to. So I wanted to cut that down to 4 by 5 1/4. And this way I do have a border for my final card, and I get to chop off some of that stuff I didn't like. So that happens in the card making process as well. There's things that you do, you realize, I don't like it. The good thing is I could have remade that panel very easily if I needed to. So I'm going to pull out this stamp set here. I think this is just such a nice one. And this big G I never used before. So I wanted to see what that will give me. I'm running this through my Spellbinder Scout, and I'm using brown cardstock for it. And so I'm also going to use the Grateful because I think that's a really fun bold. Now, the great thing about this G is you're going to get the innard and the outline. So I thought that was cool as well. Then I went and heat embossed this Grateful sentiment with some gold embossing powder. And I'm going to use this G in a unique way. So I thought, I have this, why not do something a little funky with it? And so I intertwined the Grateful through that outline G. And now I'm going to use that as, I guess, my sentiment. And so I can use this card for anything. I can send this during the fall season for pretty much any reason, which are my favorite kind of cards for sure. So this is the placement I like. And now I'm just going to take my liquid adhesive and I'm going to just put down everything. The outline G was a little tricky, so I did have to put some liquid adhesive on the G and then press it down into the Grateful to make sure that it was straight in the way that I wanted it. And so I did that in 2 places. Now my liquid adhesive that I'm using is Barely Art Glue inside the Nouveau bottle that's in the press. So it is actually Barely Art Glue, and I find that's my favorite glue, and it sticks really well and pretty quick. So I'm going to place the other sweater up on the top. I feel like that sort of finishes off the look there. So all of those are going to go flat. I'm also going to put down the 2 coffee cups and this pumpkin patch. I'm going to put those down flat as well, but I'm going to be popping up this sweater and this pumpkin patch. See, I'm just playing around, seeing what I like. I'm going to use foam tape for that because I want a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to do it for my sweater and this pumpkin patch right here, as well as the Grateful. And so I love that. I love that little cluster of fall things down there and the popping up the sentiment as well. So I get that popped up. Now, the card could be finished here, but when it comes time for the fall seasons and the holidays, I love sparkle. So I pulled out my gold glitter pops of color, and I'm adding sparkle everywhere. It just is that added touch to homemade cards that I just adore. I'm putting it around the sweaters, I'm putting it around the coffee cup, and then I decide to actually add, which is something that I've never done before. I usually do like white lines for some reflection, but I decided to add the gold to the pumpkin. And so I'm just putting little dots of gold just to give it a little bit of sparkle right there on the pumpkin. So I really, really enjoyed making this card. I know we're a little far off from fall, maybe a couple months, but I wanted to just pull out my stuff, and I wanted to walk through this process with you so you can kind of get an idea of when you have all this stuff, where do you start? The first thing I would recommend is start with the kind of card you want to make or the kind of technique you want to make. I think that's just one of 2 places to kind of get your thought juices flowing. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to check out everything I used in the description box if you're interested, as well as from our sponsor, some more information there. And I will see you all in the comments down below and in the next video. Bye-bye.